I never thought changing oil would save a life. The Mercedes came screaming into our shop at 6:47 a.m., smoke pouring from its tires, a bleeding Korean billionaire at the wheel, and 3 SUVs full of Russian mobsters 30 seconds behind him. In the next 10 minutes, my partners and I would make a decision that would either get us killed or turn us into the most unlikely heroes Brooklyn had ever seen. But I'm getting ahead of myself. If you've listened to this story to this point, please hit that like button and subscribe. Share this with someone who loves a good underdog and mafia story. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. My name is Marcus Webb, and I've been turning wrenches at Webb & Sons Auto Repair in South Brooklyn for 15 years. My partners, Jerome Rome, Patterson, and DeShawn Mills, have been with me for 12 and 10 years respectively. We're not heroes. We're mechanics. We fix transmissions, rotate tires, and argue about whether synthetic oil is worth the extra money. The shop sits on a corner lot where Atlantic Avenue meets a forgotten side street that most GPS systems ignore. We get the overflow from the dealerships, the desperate late-night breakdowns, and the occasional luxury car whose owner got lost looking for the highway. The neighborhood knows us. We sponsor the Youth Basketball League. We give discounts to single mothers. We're part of the fabric here. That Tuesday in October started like any other. I arrived at 6:30, unlocked the bay doors, and started the coffee maker that Rome swears makes motor oil in a cup. DeShawn rolled in 20 minutes later, still rubbing sleep from his eyes, complaining about his daughter's science project that had kept him up until 2 in the morning. Volcanoes, Marcus, he groaned, grabbing a mug. Why does every kid have to build a volcano? I laughed. Because explosions are cool. You remember being 8. I remember being smart enough to copy off Tommy Jenkins. Rome arrived last, as always, carrying a bag of bacon, egg, and cheese sandwiches from the bodega. Breakfast is served, gentlemen. And we got a full schedule. Mrs. Chin's Camry needs brakes. That Audi from last week is coming back for the electrical issue, and the screech of tires cut him off. We all turned toward the open bay door. A black Mercedes S-Class came smoking around the corner, fishtailing on the wet pavement. It wasn't slowing down. It was accelerating, heading straight for our shop with the desperation of a wounded animal seeking shelter. The hell? DeShawn dropped his coffee. The Mercedes mounted the curb, engine roaring, and skidded into our parking lot in a spray of rainwater and burning rubber. It clipped our dumpster, sending it spinning, and finally slammed to a stop 3 feet from our hydraulic lift. We stood frozen, sandwiches forgotten. The driver's door flew open, and out stumbled a young Asian man in a suit that probably cost more than our monthly rent. He couldn't have been more than 25, with styled black hair now plastered to his forehead and wild eyes that darted behind him like hunted prey. Please. His accent was thick, Korean maybe. Please help. They are coming. Blood soaked through his white dress, shirt near his shoulder. His hands shook as he clutched the wound, and I could see the fabric of his suit jacket torn where something, a bullet, had grazed him. I moved first. 15 years in this neighborhood taught you to act fast and ask questions later. Rome, hit the bay doors. DeShawn, first aid kit. Now, the young man collapsed against the Mercedes, legs giving out. I caught him before he hit the concrete, feeling the tremor running through his body. He was in shock, pupils dilated, breathing rapid and shallow. My name is Park Ji-hoon, he gasped. I am. They want to kill me. Please, please, you must help. The bay doors rumbled as Rome pulled them down, shutting out the gray morning light. DeShawn was already beside me with the kit we kept for the inevitable shop injuries. Cuts from sharp metal, burns from hot engines, the occasional smashed finger. But this was different. This was a bullet wound. Who wants to kill you? I pressed gauze against his shoulder while DeShawn supported his weight. The young man, Ji-hoon, winced but didn't cry out. The Constantine brothers. Russian. I was supposed to meet for business deal, but it was trap. They want my money, my father's company access codes, everything. His English was broken, but desperate. I ran. I drove. I did not know where to go. I saw your light, and the roar of engines outside cut through his explanation. 3 SUVs, black as midnight, pulled up to our shop with the coordination of wolves surrounding prey. Through the small windows near the ceiling, I could see armed men emerging, 6 of them, maybe more. They wore expensive suits, but the guns in their hands were all business. Marcus. Rome's voice was low, controlled. He'd done 2 tours in Afghanistan before coming home to work with his hands instead of weapons. He recognized danger when he saw it. We got a serious problem. Ji-hoon grabbed my arm with surprising strength for someone losing blood. They will kill all of us. I am so sorry. I should not have come here. I have brought death to your door. I looked at Rome, then at DeShawn. We'd known each other long enough that words weren't always necessary. DeShawn had 3 kids at home. Rome had a girlfriend he was planning to propose to next month. I had a sister in nursing school who depended on the money I sent her. We should have opened those bay doors. Should have pushed this bleeding billionaire back into the rain and told the Russians to take their business elsewhere. Should have. How many exits we got? Rome asked instead. Back door to the alley, DeShawn answered. Side door to the storage area. But they've probably got those covered by now. A fist pounded on the bay door, heavy and insistent. A voice followed, thick with a Russian accent that could have been pulled from a movie if this wasn't terrifyingly real. We know he is inside. Send out Park Ji-hoon, and you will not be harmed. You have 10 seconds to comply. Ji-hoon's face went ashen. Please, please, I can pay you. My father, he is CEO of Park Industries in Seoul. Billions of dollars. I can give you anything you want. Just do not let them take me. I've never been a gambling man. Never bought lottery tickets. Never bet on sports, never took stupid risks. But I looked at this kid, because that's what he was, really, just a scared kid in an expensive suit. And I thought about my sister. About Rome's girlfriend. About DeShawn's daughter building her volcano. I thought about what kind of men we wanted to be. Rome, I said quietly. You still remember that thing from Kandahar? The garage standoff. A grin split his face, the kind that used to scare the hell out of enemy combatants. You thinking what I'm thinking? Probably something stupid. I'm in. DeShawn sighed. My wife is going to kill me. But yeah, I'm in too. I pulled Ji-hoon behind the hydraulic lift while Rome grabbed a toolbox. Not for tools, for weight and cover. DeShawn killed the overhead lights, plunging the shop into a murky darkness broken only by the gray light filtering through the high windows. 5 seconds, the voice outside boomed. What is your plan? Ji-hoon whispered, his good hand clutching his wounded shoulder. We're mechanics, I told him. We know our shop. They don't. And Rome here used to teach urban combat to Marines. So we're going to use what we have. Which is what exactly? DeShawn hissed. Home field advantage and a lot of crazy. Rome was already moving, muscle memory from his military days taking over. He positioned a floor jack near the door, angled just right. He grabbed the pneumatic impact wrench, the one we used for removing stubborn lug nuts, and checked the air compressor pressure. 300 psi. Enough to take your hand off if you weren't careful. Time's up. The bay door shuddered as something heavy hit it. They were preparing to breach. I pulled Ji-hoon deeper into the shop, past the lifts and the parts shelves, into the back area where we kept the really heavy equipment. The engine hoist. The transmission jack. 2-ton floor jacks that could lift a truck. Can you shoot? I asked him. He shook his head frantically. I am businessman, not soldier. Can you hide? Yes. Yes, I can hide very well. I shoved him into the parts cage, a locked chain link area where we kept expensive components to prevent theft. Stay down. Don't make a sound. No matter what you hear. The bay door exploded inward with a crash of tearing metal. The Russians had used a vehicle to ram it, and now armed men poured through the opening like water through a burst dam. But Rome was ready. The floor jack he'd positioned went sliding across the oil-slicked concrete right into the path of the first man through. The Russian's feet went out from under him, and he hit the ground hard, his weapon skittering away. Rome's impact wrench screamed to life, and he pressed it against the downed man's gun, the torque sending it spinning into a corner. DeShawn threw a 5-gallon bucket of used motor oil across the entrance, creating a slick hazard that sent 2 more Russians stumbling. In that moment of chaos, I grabbed the fire extinguisher from the wall and unleashed a cloud of chemical powder into the doorway. White fog filled the shop. Shouts in Russian echoed off the walls. I couldn't see them, but they couldn't see us either. Spread out, someone yelled. Find the Korean and kill anyone who gets in the way. I'd lived in this shop for 15 years. I knew every inch of it in the dark. I knew where the lift cables hung low enough to catch someone in the throat if they weren't careful. I knew which floorboards were warped just enough to trip you. I knew the layout like I knew the scars on my own hands. They didn't. I moved through the fog like a ghost, grabbing a pry bar from a shelf. Not to fight. I'm not stupid enough to think I could take on armed men in a fair fight, but to defend if I had no choice. Behind me, I heard Rome's voice, calm and controlled, directing DeShawn in the code they developed over years of working together. Left side, high shelf. Copy. A crash as DeShawn pulled down a shelf of old parts, sending a cascade of metal raining onto the Russians trying to navigate the fog. More cursing. A gunshot rang out, deafening in the enclosed space, but it went wild, hitting the ceiling. No shooting. Another voice commanded in Russian, then switched to English. The Korean is valuable. We need him alive. That was useful information. They wanted Ji-hoon alive, which meant they had to be careful. We just had to be crazy. I circled around, using the fog as cover, and found the main circuit breaker. With one pull, I killed the emergency lights too, plunging the shop into near-total darkness. The only illumination came from the ruined bay door and the high windows, creating shadows upon shadows. Night vision, someone shouted. Damn, of course they had night vision. But we had something better. We had desperation and knowledge and the kind of bond that comes from working beside someone for a decade. I clicked on my phone's flashlight for just a second, drawing fire, then ducked behind the tire mounting machine as bullets sparked off metal. The gunfire gave away their positions. Rome moved like a predator. I heard rather than saw him take down another Russian, using a technique he'd once drunkenly demonstrated at a barbecue. Something involving pressure points and leverage that left a grown man unconscious in seconds. DeShawn had found the acetylene torch. I heard the hiss of gas, saw the flare of ignition, and then he was using it like a lightsaber, the white-hot flame keeping the Russians at bay. It was insane. It was brilliant. It was probably going to get us killed. Enough. The voice that cut through the chaos was different, older, more authoritative. You three are brave. Stupid, but brave. Here is new deal. We will pay you each $100,000. Cash. Right now? You give us the Korean boy and walk away rich men. $100,000. I thought about my sister's student loans. About the mortgage on this shop. About the fact that we'd probably just destroyed half our equipment fighting people we had no reason to protect. What do you think, boss? Rome called out from somewhere in the darkness. I thought about Ji-hoon, terrified and bleeding in the parts cage. I thought about the kind of men who'd corner a kid and try to torture him for access codes. I thought about what my father, who'd started this shop 40 years ago, would say. I called back, that blood don't wash out of concrete easy. And I just mopped. DeShawn laughed, slightly unhinged. Man's got a point. You are making very bad mistake, the Russian said, and I could hear the anger beneath the civilized tone. We are Constantine organization. We have killed for much less than this insult. Yeah, well, we're Webb & Sons Auto Repair. I shot back. And we've got a 4.8-star rating on Google. We've got a reputation to protect. It was absurd. It was the kind of thing you say when adrenaline and terror are flooding your system, and you've crossed so far past the point of no return that you might as well lean into the crazy. A different sound cut through the tension. Sirens. Someone had called the cops. Mrs. Chun from next door, probably. Or the bodega owner who'd sold us breakfast sandwiches an hour ago, when the world still made sense. We leave now, the authoritative voice commanded. But this is not finished. We will find you. We will find your families. You have made enemies of the wrong people. The Russians retreated, moving fast, their shadows disappearing through the ruined bay door. Engines roared to life outside, and the SUVs peeled away just as the first police car rounded the corner, lights flashing red and blue against the rain. I slumped against the tire machine, my legs suddenly weak. Rome emerged from the shadows, a cut above his eye, but otherwise intact. DeShawn extinguished the torch and dropped it, his hands shaking. Did that just happen? DeShawn asked. I think we just fought the Russian Mafia, Rome answered. With a floor jack and motor oil. And won. Did we win? I asked. Because I'm pretty sure they just promised to murder us and everyone we love. The police were at the door now, weapons drawn, shouting for us to show our hands. Behind them, I could see more cars pulling up, detectives, probably, and maybe a SWAT team, because nothing about this situation was normal. I walked to the parts cage and unlocked it. Ji-hoon emerged, pale and shaking but alive. His eyes met mine, and I saw something in them. Gratitude, yes, but also fear. This wasn't over. The Russians would come back. And next time, they'd be ready for the tricks we'd pulled. Thank you, Ji-hoon whispered. You saved my life. I will never forget this. Never. Yeah. Well, I said, suddenly exhausted. You can thank us by explaining to these cops why my shop looks like a war zone. The police station's fluorescent lights made everyone look half dead. I'd been in interrogation room C for 3 hours, telling and retelling the same story to Detective Sarah Huang, who looked like she'd heard every lie in the book and was waiting for me to add a new chapter. Let me get this straight, she said for the 4th time, tapping her pen against a legal pad. A Korean billionaire crashes into your shop, bleeding from a gunshot wound, chased by Russian mobsters, and instead of calling 911, you decided to fight them off with shop equipment. That's about the size of it. Using motor oil as a weapon. And a floor jack. Don't forget the floor jack. She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Mr. Webb, do you understand how insane this sounds? Detective, I lived it, and I still think it's insane. She sighed and closed her notebook. Park Ji-hoon's story corroborates yours. His father has already contacted the South Korean embassy, the State Department, and apparently half the FBI. This is turning into an international incident. She leaned forward. Which means you 3 are in more danger than you realize. The Russians promised to come back. I got that message loud and clear. The Konstantin brothers aren't just any criminals. Dmitry and Alexei Konstantin run one of the most sophisticated organized crime operations on the East Coast. Drugs, weapons, human trafficking, extortion, you name it, they've got a piece of it. And they don't make idle threats. My stomach dropped. So what do? Witness protection is an option. I'm not leaving my shop. My whole life is here. Your whole life won't matter much if you're dead. She had a point. But the thought of abandoning everything my father built, everything I'd worked for, made me sick. Before I could respond, another detective entered and whispered something to Huang. Her expression darkened. What? I asked. They found one of the Russians you fought. Dead in his car 3 blocks from your shop. Single gunshot to the head. The Konstantines don't tolerate failure. They'd killed their own man. The message was clear. If they'd do that to their own people, what would they do to us? They released us at dawn. DeShawn's wife picked him up, her face a mask of barely controlled fury. Rome caught a cab, refusing to talk about it. I walked, needing the cold morning air to clear my head. Ji-hoon was waiting outside the precinct in a fresh suit, the wounded shoulder bandaged professionally. With him stood 2 serious-looking men in dark suits, bodyguards, I assumed, and an older Korean man with silver hair and the bearing of someone used to commanding rooms full of people. Mr. Webb. Ji-hoon approached me, bowing slightly. This is my father, Park Sang-min. The older man extended his hand. His grip was firm, his eyes sharp with intelligence. Mr. Webb, my son tells me you and your friends saved his life. There are no words adequate to express my gratitude. We just did what anyone would do. No. Park Sang-min's voice was gentle but firm. Most people would have turned him away. You risked everything for a stranger. That is rare. That is honorable. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card. I have already contacted my lawyers. They will handle the damages to your shop and ensure you are compensated for your troubles. That's not necessary. It is absolutely necessary. But more than that, I want to offer you protection. The Konstantin brothers are dangerous, yes, but I am not without resources. I have hired a private security firm to watch over you, your partners, and your families. I looked at the card. Park Industries. Seoul, South Korea. A company I vaguely remembered from business news, something about semiconductors and technology. Mr. Park, I appreciate this, but you think I am just businessman, yes? Rich man who knows nothing of violence. His smile was thin. I built my company from nothing in a country still recovering from war. I know what it means to face dangerous men, and I know how to protect those I owe debts to. Ji-hoon stepped forward. Please, Mr. Webb, let us help you. My father is right. The Konstantines will come. But they are not the only ones with resources. I thought about DeShawn's kids. About Rome's girlfriend. About my sister. Okay, I said finally. Thank you. The security team arrived at the shop within hours. 6 former military contractors, led by a no-nonsense woman named Rachel Torres who'd done 3 tours in Iraq and 2 in private security. She assessed our shop, our homes, our daily routines with the precision of a surgeon. You've got good instincts, she told me as we walked through the damaged shop. Using the environment, staying mobile, creating chaos. That's exactly what you should have done. But next time, they'll be ready for that. Will there be a next time? Count on it. The Constantines lost face. In their world, that demands blood. She pointed to the corners of the shop. We're installing cameras, reinforced doors, panic buttons. Your homes get the same treatment. And one of my people will be with each of you at all times. For how long? Until the threat is neutralized. Which means, she met my eyes. Until the Constantines are arrested, dead, or convinced that coming after you costs more than it's worth. Rome and DeShawn arrived as Rachel's team was installing the security equipment. We stood in the middle of our destroyed shop, bay door hanging off its hinges, oil stains everywhere, bullet holes in the walls. And for a moment, nobody spoke. My wife wants me to quit, DeShawn said finally. Says this job isn't worth dying over. Your wife is smart, Rome answered. What about you? Your girl gonna stick around knowing you've got Russian mobsters gunning for you? Rome was quiet for a long moment. I haven't told her yet. I laughed, a bitter sound. We're a mess. Yeah, DeShawn agreed. But we're alive. For now. The next 3 days were strange. We tried to work, to maintain some sense of normalcy, but it was impossible with armed guards watching our every move. Mrs. Chen came by with food, refusing to take payment, tears in her eyes. The neighborhood rallied around us, the bodega owner, the dry cleaner, the family that ran the Chinese restaurant. They'd heard about what we did, saving that young man, standing up to criminals. We were heroes to them. We felt like dead men walking. On the 4th day, Ji-hoon returned to the shop. His shoulder was healing, the wound less serious than it had looked. He brought coffee and pastries from an expensive bakery in Manhattan. I am flying back to Seoul tomorrow, he told us as we sat in the shop's cramped office. But I wanted to see you before I left. To thank you properly. You already thanked us, I said. And your father's already doing too much. My father believes in paying debts. So do I. He pulled out 3 envelopes and set them on the desk. Inside each is a check for $500,000. The room went silent. That's too much, DeShawn stammered. It is not enough, Ji-hoon countered. You saved my life. You made yourselves targets for my sake. This money, it is nothing compared to the value of life. Rome picked up one of the envelopes, staring at it like it might explode. This changes everything. It should, Ji-hoon said. You deserve to change your lives. Pay off debts. Send your children to college. Buy a house. Whatever you dream. I looked at that envelope and thought about my sister's student loans. About the shop's mortgage. About every struggle we'd faced trying to keep this place running. There's one more thing, Ji-hoon continued. The security team my father hired, they will stay as long as needed. But I have also been working with the FBI. They are very interested in the Constantine brothers. What happened here, it gives them evidence they need. They want to build a case. You want us to testify? I asked. I want you to help bring them down. Permanently. DeShawn shook his head. Man, we're mechanics, not witnesses. We don't know anything about their operation. But you fought them. You saw their faces. You can identify them. And with my testimony about the attempted kidnapping and extortion, we have a case. The FBI agent, Special Agent Morrison, wants to meet with you. Rome leaned back in his chair. So we take the money, testify against the Russian Mafia, and hope they don't kill us before the trial? The alternative is hiding forever, Ji-hoon said quietly. Living in fear. Looking over your shoulder. Is that the life you want? It wasn't. But neither was being dead. If you're on the edge of your seat right now, don't forget to like this story and share it with your friends. Comment below what you think Marcus should do. And subscribe so you don't miss the explosive conclusion. Special Agent Rebecca Morrison looked like she could bench press a truck and then write a perfect report about it. She met us at a safe house in Queens, a nondescript apartment that probably saw more criminals than residents. Gentlemen, she said, shaking each of our hands with a grip that tested our masculinity. I've read the reports. What you did was either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. We're leaning towards stupid, I admitted. She smiled. Either way, you've given us an opportunity we haven't had in 5 years. The Constantine brothers are ghosts. They operate through intermediaries, use shell companies, and anyone who talks ends up in the East River. But now we have witnesses, we have attempted murder, we have kidnapping. We can build a RICO case that'll put them away for life. If we live long enough to testify, Rome said. That's where I come in. Full protective custody. New identities if necessary. We can relocate your families, set you up somewhere the Constantines will never find you. I thought about the shop, about the neighborhood that had rallied around us, about abandoning everything we'd built. There's got to be another way, I said. Morrison leaned forward. There is. We go on offense. We use you as bait. The room went cold. Excuse me. DeShawn's voice climbed an octave. The Constantines want revenge. They're going to come for you regardless. But if we control when and where that happens, we can catch them in the act. Set a trap. Bring them down with overwhelming force. You want to use us as bait to catch Russian mobsters, I said slowly. You want us to put our lives on the line so you can make your case. I want to end this threat permanently. Yes, there's risk, but the alternative is running for the rest of your lives. Rome stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the Queen's skyline. Afghanistan, we had rules of engagement. We knew who the enemy was. We had support, backup, air cover. What do we have here? Me, Morrison said. My team, the full resources of the FBI, and a chance to be heroes instead of victims. We're not heroes, I said. We're mechanics who got lucky once. Luck had nothing to do with it. You used your environment, worked as a team, and outthought armed professionals. That's skill. That's courage. And that's exactly what we need. DeShawn was quiet, staring at his hands. Finally, he spoke. My daughter asked me why those bad men wanted to hurt us. I told her we helped someone in trouble. She said that made us heroes. He looked up. How do I explain to her that heroes run away? You don't have to explain anything, I said. We can walk away from this. Take the money, relocate, start over. Without the shop, without our home, without our neighbors who've become family. He shook his head. That's not starting over. That's running. Rome turned from the window. I'm in, but I want guarantees. Our family's protected, no matter what. And if this goes south, we don't hang for it. Morrison nodded. You have my word, and I'll put it in writing. I looked at my partners, my brothers. We'd built something together, something more than just a business. We'd built a life, and I'd be damned if I'd let some Russian gangsters take that from us. All right, I said. What's the plan? The trap was elegant in its simplicity. We'd reopen the shop, business as usual, with the security team in place, but visible. The Constantines would see it as a challenge, an insult to their power. They'd have to respond. When they did, Morrison's team would be ready. Undercover agents posing as customers. Surveillance teams in the buildings around us. A SWAT unit 5 minutes away. We'd be surrounded by protection, even if we couldn't see it. They'll come at night, Morrison predicted. When foot traffic is low, they'll want to make an example of you. Probably film it. Use it to send a message to anyone else who thinks about crossing them. Comforting, DeShawn muttered. We spent a week preparing. Rachel's team drilled us on defensive positions, escape routes, panic protocols. Rome's military training came in handy, and he took to it like he'd never left the service. DeShawn struggled with the violence of it all, but he showed up every day, determined to protect his family. I spent my nights at the shop, unable to sleep, thinking about all the ways this could go wrong. One mistake, one miscalculation, and we'd be dead. Or worse, our families would pay the price for our choices. On the 8th day, Ji-hoon called from Seoul. I have news, he said. Not good news. My father's intelligence sources say the Constantines have put a bounty on you. $2 million. They want you alive, so they can make your deaths memorable. My blood ran cold. 2 million. It means they are serious. It means they will send their best. Marcus, perhaps you should reconsider this plan. My father can arrange for you to disappear. We have safe houses in Korea, Japan, even remote islands. You could live comfortably, safely, and always wonder when they'd find us. Yes, he admitted. There is that. We're seeing this through. But Ji-hoon, thank you. For everything. It is I who should thank you. You gave me my life. I will not forget. The attack came on a Friday night. We were closing up, going through our rehearsed routine, when the power died. Not just to the shop, to the whole block. The Constantines had cut the grid. Here we go, Rome whispered, his hand hovering near the panic button that would alert Morrison's team. But nothing happened. 30 seconds passed. A minute. 2. Where are they? DeShawn hissed. Then I heard it. Not from the front. From below. The sewers, I breathed. They're coming through the sewers. We'd planned for a frontal assault, for a siege, for every conventional approach. We hadn't planned for them tunneling underneath us. The floor exploded upward in a shower of concrete and dust. 4 men emerged from the hole, moving with military precision, night vision goggles glowing green in the darkness. They weren't here to talk. They weren't here to threaten. They were here to end us. Rome hit the panic button as I dove for cover. DeShawn was already moving, muscle memory from our drills taking over. But these weren't the same Russians from before. These were professionals, specialists, assassins. A net shot out, catching DeShawn mid-stride, tangling his legs. He went down hard. Rome charged the nearest attacker, but a taser stopped him cold, 50,000 volts dropping him like a puppet with cut strings. I grabbed a wrench and swung wild, catching one of them in the shoulder. He barely flinched. His fist caught me in the solar plexus, driving the air from my lungs. I dropped to my knees, gasping. They had us. All of us. In under 30 seconds. A fifth figure emerged from the hole in the floor. Older, distinguished, with cold eyes that had seen death too many times to be moved by it anymore. Marcus Webb, he said in lightly accented English. Jerome Patterson. DeShawn Mills. You have caused my organization considerable embarrassment. Dmitry Konstantin. Had to be. Where is FBI? He asked, looking around. Where is your protection? Ah, yes. They are coming. But the sewers, they will slow them down. And we will be gone before they arrive. Along with you. They zip-tied our hands with professional efficiency. I struggled, but it was useless. We'd gambled everything on Morrison's plan, and we'd lost. You should have taken the money and run, Dmitry said, almost sadly. But you chose pride. You chose to be heroes. Now you will be examples. They started dragging us toward the hole. Once we were in those sewers, we were gone. Morrison's team would find an empty shop and no leads. We'd failed. Then the lights came back on. Not the shop lights. Spotlights. Brilliant, blinding white spotlights from every direction. FBI, drop your weapons. You are surrounded. Morrison's voice boomed through a megaphone. The Russians froze, squinting against the glare. The sewers are blocked, Morrison continued. We have teams at every exit. You have nowhere to go. Surrender now, and you live. Fight, and you die. For a moment, I thought Dmitry might choose death. His hand moved toward his weapon. But one of his men spoke rapidly in Russian, and Dmitry's shoulders slumped. Whatever he said, it convinced him. Slowly, very slowly, they released us and raised their hands. FBI agents poured in from every direction. Not just from outside, from the sewers, from the buildings around us, from positions we'd never known existed. Morrison had played us, used us as bait, but she'd been ready. She'd been more than ready. 6 months later, I stood in federal court and watched Dmitry and Alexei Konstantin receive life sentences without parole. Their organization, decimated by the FBI's investigation, would never recover. Dozens of arrests. Millions in seized assets. The biggest takedown of Russian organized crime in a decade. And it started in a Brooklyn auto shop. Ji-hoon flew in for the sentencing. He sat in the gallery with his father, both of them in immaculate suits, watching justice unfold. When the judge's gavel fell, sealing the Konstantin's fate, Ji-hoon caught my eye and nodded. A debt repaid. Outside the courthouse, Morrison shook our hands one final time. You three did good, she said. Brave, stupid, but good. You used us, Rome said, but there was no anger in his voice. Just acknowledgement. I did, and I won't apologize for it. We got them. All of them. And you're alive. She paused. The Bureau wants to offer you something. Consultant positions. Training other agents in improvised urban defense. The things you did that first day, we want to teach that. I laughed. We're mechanics, Agent Morrison. Not teachers. You're survivors. And that's worth more than any degree. We declined, politely. Some people are meant for that life. We weren't. The insurance settlement came through, along with the city's compensation for damages during the FBI operation. Combined with Ji-hoon's gift, which we'd invested carefully on Rachel's advice, we had options. Real options, for the first time in our lives. DeShawn used his money to buy a house with a big backyard where his daughter could build all the volcanoes she wanted. He still came to the shop every day, but now he left at 5 on the dot. Family time became non-negotiable. Rome proposed to his girlfriend. She said yes, probably because she was tougher than all the Russian mobsters combined. They bought a small place in Queens and started talking about kids. He worked mornings at the shop and spent afternoons coaching youth basketball in the neighborhood. As for me, I kept the shop running. Webb & Sons Auto Repair, now with reinforced doors and a 4.9-star Google rating. We'd gained points after the publicity died down. My sister graduated nursing school debt-free and got a job at Brooklyn Methodist. She stops by for lunch sometimes, still can't believe what her big brother did. Mrs. Chun still brings us food. The bodega owner still sells us breakfast sandwiches. The neighborhood still feels like home. But we're different now. We know what we're capable of. We know that when the moment comes, when someone needs help and the easy choice is to look away, we won't. We can't. It's not in us anymore. Ji-hoon visits twice a year. He's running his father's company now, making his own fortune, but he always makes time to stop by the shop. We change his oil for free, and he pretends to be offended by the gesture. It's become our ritual. Last month, he brought his fiancée to meet us. A brilliant woman who teaches economics at Seoul National University. She shook our grease-stained hands without hesitation and thanked us for saving her stubborn man's life. You know, Ji-hoon said as we stood in the shop, surrounded by the familiar smell of motor oil and old coffee. I have been thinking about that day, about what you risked for me. Don't go getting sentimental on us, Rome said, but he was smiling. No, I am serious. You did not know who I was. You did not know my father had money. You did not know if helping me would pay off. You just knew it was right thing to do. He paused. That is rare. In my world, everything is transaction. Everything has price. But what you did, that had no price. That was just good. We're not saints, I said. We're just guys who couldn't live with ourselves if we'd looked the other way. Exactly, Ji-hoon said. That is what makes you exceptional. You were just guys. Regular people. But when it mattered, you chose to be heroes. I looked around the shop. At the lifts and the tool benches. At the coffee maker that still produced motor oil in a cup. At Rome wiping his hands on a rag and DeShawn checking his phone for pictures his daughter sent from school. We weren't heroes. We were mechanics. But maybe that was enough. People ask me sometimes if I'd do it again. If I'd make the same choice, knowing what I know now. Knowing the danger, the fear, the nights I couldn't sleep because I was sure the Constantines would find a way to reach us even from prison. I tell them the truth. I don't know. But I do know this. When that Mercedes came crashing into our shop, bleeding billionaire at the wheel and death 30 seconds behind, we had a choice. Open the bay doors and let the world's problems stay outside, or pull those doors down and stand between a terrified kid and the monsters hunting him. We chose to stand. And yeah, we're just mechanics. We fix cars. We rotate tires. We argue about synthetic oil. But for one insane morning in October, we were something more. We were 3 black mechanics from Brooklyn who looked the Russian Mafia in the eye and said, not today, not in our shop, not while we're still breathing. I wake up every morning, unlock those bay doors, and start that terrible coffee maker. Rome arrives with breakfast sandwiches. DeShawn complains about his daughter's latest school project. We're mechanics, and we saved a life. That's our story. That's who we are. And I wouldn't change a damn thing. Thank you for sticking with this story all the way to the end. If you loved Marcus, Rome, and DeShawn's journey, please like this story, share it with everyone you know, and subscribe for more incredible stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Drop a comment below telling me what you thought. Did this story inspire you? Would you have made the same choice? I read every single comment. And if you want more gripping tales like this one, hit that notification bell so you never miss a new story. Thank you for your support. You're the reason I keep writing these stories. Until next time, stay brave, stay kind, and remember, heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they wear grease-stained coveralls.